Come check out how to paint Nurgle Poxwalkers made easy. What's going on, Hobby Maniacs? Rob Baer with you again today. And we've got a special tutorial for you. This is one we've recorded a very special way. Hopefully you notice a little bit better quality in this recording here. We painted up some Nurgle Poxwalkers using the Army Painter paints exclusively. I'm really starting to enjoy painting with these Army Painter paints on smaller figures. They're great to airbrush with. They're great to brush on. Their washes now, acrylic-based washes, are on point for small detail. Personally, I still prefer some other technicals for larger models, but I'm still learning how to work with them over larger surfaces. Haven't quite got there yet. Not quite sure, but for this little stuff, it's amazing. Can't say enough good things about Army Painter. Now, these Poxwalkers here, of course, you know, Nurgle's all the rage right now, Death Guard and everything out there. This is a very easy tutorial. Now, we do use the airbrush to cut in some of the fades on the skin, and that's just a little bit of being neurotic on my part. You do not have to airbrush in the fades on the skin. You literally don't. Like, you can skip half of the video and get to the detail part and learn just as much by picking up some primer from Army Painter and picking up some color match paint and doing exactly the same thing with brush. So if you don't have an airbrush, don't be off put by this video, because it is very easy to still follow along and do this tutorial. Now, Army Painter has a very awesome primer called Necrotic Flesh. I've used this in the past for my Death Guard army 12 years ago. I don't even remember. It was so long ago. Middle of the 2000s, we'll go with that. You can see here, it's got a really dope kind of rotten flesh color here. Now, what's cool about Army Painter stuff is that their primers are all color match with the bottles, which is awesome, because you can literally use this for any detail work you get back on the primer and you're good to go. You don't even need to airbrush the fades on your skin. You can use this color right here and get a very similar effect to everything I tell you in this tutorial, up to the point where we start detailing it. Now, another cool thing about Army Painter 2 is that they have such a robust color line, which you can see right here, and you can check it out at any retailer that carries their product. They have a huge rack now, and most retailers out there, game stores, you know, check them out. Check out the website. They have all sorts of great information, tutorials themselves as well over there. Any color you're looking to do, they probably have. I love working with their metals. Their metals airbrush great. You saw us use their metals on Celestine earlier in the year when she came out. I was very, very excited to airbrush with their golds. I can't wait. I'm going to start a new Knight project here soon. We're going to use their metals, just their straight up steels and silvers, on this Knight Titan, and we're going to see how well those turn out, because I'm really excited. If they're even 75% as good as the golds, I cannot wait to get in there and use these metals here. So enough talking, let's jump into the tutorial. Remember, if you don't have an airbrush, you can still do this tutorial. It's still very easy. Their stuff is amazing. They make painting easy. Army Painter is amazing stuff, so make sure you check them out. All sorts of colors. Let's jump right into it and see how to paint some dope Poxwalkers. So the first step on our road to Malefic Lorddom or Poxwalkerdom, either way, was a quick spray with Necrotic Flesh from Army Painter. That's their color primer. I've used this stuff in the past from actually my Death Guard army back in the day when they made metal miniatures, which was a really great and fast project. So I wanted to use that again today on these guys as just a base. Now, I want to illustrate Army Painter's awesome color match technology. This is the primer. You can tell, you know, it's mostly primered pretty well, 360-degree coverage there. Now, what I'm going to do here is take this guy here. We're going to grab a dropper bottle of their 100% color match here. This Necrotic Flesh is the dropper bottle. One thing you want to be aware of, whenever you get a new bottle of this stuff, you're going to want to squeeze out a lot of the, matte medium, I guess they put in here to try to keep the paints from drying out. There's going to be a bunch in here. You need to drain it out, then shake it up, and then you'll get a nice good consistency for the paint itself. If you don't do that, the paint's just going to be way too watery to use, and you're going to be very confused. There is instructions on the bottle to do that and such, so we're just going to grab that. I put a little on our palette here, and I just want to show you how amazing their color match technology is. Like, we don't have to do all the work we're going to do. I just want, on this model, I just want a specific look that's going to be different from my Nurgle. So I've got some necrotic flesh on my brush here, and you can see I'm painting it on right here, and it is, I mean, it is indistinguishable to the naked eye, to the camera's eye, how, I mean, it's just bam, just right over top of it, easy peasy, 100% match right there. That's why Army Painter is so dope when it comes to their color technology. Now, that really doesn't have anything to do with the tutorial itself. I just wanted to show you guys. And of course, you don't need to use the airbrush to do these fades that we're going to do here either. You can literally use washes, base coat this, use the Army Painter washes that we're also going to use, and take it up from necrotic flesh, or take it down, whichever way you want to go. And it'll look fine. The model will look fine. I'm just matching my existing army that I've done in the past, and trying to make the lords look a little different but not stand out too much, because they're basically human kind of centerpieces in a demon army that have mutated over. Now, unfortunately, they don't have a pale flesh primer, so we're going to use the airbrush. We're going to get in here, we're going to use some of this corpse pale, and we're going to base coat the Poxwalker here this corpse pale color. So I've mixed up a little in my pot, which you can see right here. I added a little bit of flow improver, did some back flushing, kind of mixed it in the bowl. It seems to be a pretty good consistency here. I was messing with it earlier. And get the air going. Kind of get things, there we go, starting to come through. Okay, so what we're gonna do is just base coat the whole miniature here with this corpse pale color. And what's cool about the necrotic flesh is it's just gonna kind of lay underneath it and just give us that really sick kind of look that's really gonna pop these miniatures off when we're done. So I'm gonna finish base coating this guy, and we're gonna come back for the next step. Now that we've got that all base coated up, I tried to just get it on the flesh areas, but it kind of goes everywhere. We're gonna start adding a little bit of disease detail with some purple here. Strangely enough, they have a color called orc blood, which I absolutely love. This is gonna be great. We're gonna make it nice and bruised and battered effects here over anywhere that there's gonna be open sores, like right here and like up in this armpit here. And then we're gonna mix in probably some browns and such into it. So we're just gonna mix up a little in our pot here and get in here and just kind of hit the areas that are going to be diseased. So like right in here, kind of like the biggest concentrations of poxes. Now I want it to go kind of wide, because we're going to get in there and we're going to darken it up a little bit with some browns or some like tanned flesh kind of type colors. I want to get up in here. Well, that kind of didn't work so well. That's all right. We'll just dry it out right there. We're just using air just to kind of dry it. And try it again here. There we go. All right, now we're gonna get a nice solid base coat over top of that. There we go. Okay, the pouches are gonna be detailed separately, of course. And this is gonna make that really sick looking kind of grossness that we come to expect from these sort of Nurgle dudes. And up here in this neck area, might as well just go ahead and get the face. Oh, that's gonna be so sick. Holy cow. Okay, let's see if there's any sores on the back. I guess right here around where this thing burst. I guess that's what that is. I don't know. We'll get in there. Like down the spine area and stuff too. It's gonna make some really sick looking detail work right there. Okay, so now we've got our purples. And the next step is going to be to find a suitable brown to kind of darken that up. And then we're going to start detailing out some of these things. The next step is going to be to add in sick brown, like I said. I picked out tanned flesh here just because it's not quite as dark, but when we start doing all the washes and glazes and things, I think it'll turn out just fine. So I like it because it's light enough to get into the crevices and the underneath and the undercuts where the pale flesh is, but also good enough to still go with the purple here, the orc blood that we use. So we're just gonna get in here and kind of go right in the center and get some of those areas and start making it look really gross here. I'm gonna of course hit the face and these postural areas here really lightly, and then stuff like the undercuts and things, we're gonna add a little bit of shading here as well. So it's gonna be all sorts of different sick, disgusting color combinations that are really just gonna kind of play off of each other once we start detailing this out, and looking pretty interesting to say the least. Now, most of the fades are done at this point. I think we're gonna need to do something about this bone right here. And then I think it's time to get in here and really start doing the details work and the heavy lifting on this project. All right, so I had a little too much fun off camera, to be honest, detailing this out. What I did was I actually went in with their skeleton bone and traced out the horns there in bone. Now, the army painter, there's no right or wrong way to use army painter stuff. It's so thin. You can see the base coat I put on there. It just went right over the flesh. It blended together perfect. I mean, there's a little overlap right here on this purple, but it's not a real big deal once we get in, we do some washes. Then at the top, I took the airbrush back out. I used a little dark stone, and which is like a kind of like a black brown kind of type deal. And remember, demon bone's always darker towards the tips, so I just kind of airbrushed some fades out towards the tips on a couple of bone right there. And then actually I went in and where we had that tanned flesh, I just hit it with a little spritz of the dark brown right there just to get a little bit more definition. So kind of popping it off. So all sorts of sick colors at play here. And once we start getting in here and doing the brush work over the next couple steps, this is where it's really gonna start popping off, and you're gonna see all sorts of interesting details come to light, and that you really can't even see at this point. So before we do anything else, the next step is going to be to give it a quick matte varnish. You can use the Army Painter matte varnish spray that they have. Make sure you're checking your humidity levels and things. There's all sorts of warnings on how to do that. But lay down a nice matte coat so you can seal up all of this airbrush work so we don't fat finger and rub any of it off during the next steps. So now it's just time to start blocking out some of these details here using the Army Painter range, which is awesomely varied and has a color for pretty much everything. So we're going to start with fur brown on what I'm going to call the leathers, even though this isn't, traditionally a leather color. It's a nice rich brown that's going to really work up well when we use some of these washes here. So we're going to use it for the belts and the pouches and all that stuff. We're just going to get in here and we're just going to kind of carefully work in all of the detail up that needs it with this fur brown that we're going to highlight later. And now that we got all of that blocked in nice and neat, we did the heft of the weapon here, the pouches, the belts. We left our little belt buckles and things for some metal detail work there. And speaking of more detail work, I realized that this down here is some sort of leather as well. But what I wanted to do was, the whole point to Nurgle is, and to match my army, is going to be using the greens that I used previously. So I need to leave a lot of surface area here for that green work. So I decided I was going to do this little what's left of the pants down here and this little tabard in a green. So we're going to grab our green skin from the Army Painter and start to base the tabard, as well as that little greave or shin area right there. Now, I did do the tassels and things, or the bootstraps over here. So we're just going to get in here and we're just going to lay down a nice base coat and come back and work this up. I think we're going to spend some time actually blending this one to match my existing army, but of course you always need that solid base coat first off, and that's what we're going to get in here and block all this out. But you can tell Army Painter paints are very easy to use. Nice and thin, goes over, coverage is amazing. I love these paints, and they match a lot of the stuff out there already. So I'm actually matching a Privateer Press paint right here. That's about as close as we can get it with what Privateer or with what Army Painter has. But there's plenty of colors out there, and you can get everything close to existing what you might be using in a project or you have used in the past. And now we've got all of our greens blocked in here. So it's time. I mean, you can see just in that short amount of time, we've really come a long ways with the highlights and such. So now we're just going to keep on pushing through and hit up some belt buckles with plate mail metal from Army Painter as well. Another great paint from them that's almost like, I like a lot of their paints because it's almost like the airbrush consistency when you're using it straight out of the bottle. So it's not going to be chunky or anything like that. And we're just going to come across the top here and start hitting all these buckles and belt buttons and some of these. I guess there's a fuel tank on the back here. Some sort of respirator thing, I guess. So we're going to go in and block out all those details now. And this is really going to start to transform here after this next step. Okay, so everything is looking good right here. We've got a lot of detail blocked in. Went ahead and did all the metals there. And then you can also see I added in a color, it's called Filthy Cape, to the mask right here and blocked all that in, but got all the straps and everything all set up on the back. So now it's time for probably one of the funnest parts of this project, where we get to actually color all of the boils and all the different disgusting stuff. So we're going to grab a bunch of different colors here, like for things like bright purples, we're going to use Toxic Boil and Witch Brew, all sorts of exciting colors, Babe Blonde. We're just going to get in there and we're just going to start kind of dotting all the boils and just kind of really starting to accent all of those gross, disgusting areas that the wash is really going to kind of bring all together here once we hit it towards the end. And now it's really starting to look disgusting. Those three colors really combined well together to accent all the poxes and boils in here, and it's just gonna look even sicker. I had a little depth to the metal right there with that same what was it, dark stone that we used in the airbrush step, and also for the mouth area, so we could get those accents on the teeth here in a minute. Now we're almost to the magic step, and I wanted to go back and highlight and actually spend some time highlighting the green, because that's the thing, like I said, that's really gonna pull the army together on itself as an accent. So I'm going to add a little bit of Poisonous Cloud over to the green skin that we based it with, probably like a 50-50 type mix, what I got here on my palette. And we're just going to start going in and doing traditional highlights on the cape and such right here, because like I said, I do want this to kind of shine through and be one of the focal points that pulls all of my miniatures together, whether they're existing demons that I painted or whether they're these human Malefic Lords or Poxwalkers, whichever I choose to use them as, I suppose. They're kind of dual purpose at this point, because I guess there isn't a Malefic Lord model per se. So that's the first step there, and then I'll probably add a little bit more of that Poisonous Cloud in to bring it up and do some fine edge highlighting right there as well. Just a few more details to go here. I think a light dry brush on the teeth is probably called for, just with that bone we were using earlier. Just something right across there to get a little bit of definition. I think that's looking good. And probably something with the eyes. I think we're gonna do like a blue kind of deal with the eyes there. So I feel like we'll just get in and maybe use these two blues right here, Crystal Blue and Void Shield Blue, just to work it up a little bit. And then when we hit the washes, we'll probably have to put a drop of like white at the very top or something. Now it's time to make the magic happen. So we're gonna base the majority of our wash on this Flesh Wash in Purple Tone. Now, a quick note, these are the new washes from Army Painter. They came out in February. So if you have the older stuff that's gonna say an ink down here, you don't want that. Don't use that. They will not work like this. You wanna make sure you got the ones that say washes. It can say tone as long as it says wash down here. So we're gonna add in to this palette a bunch of this Flesh Wash right here, and just a touch of this purple. Now, I would do this too, like if I was doing, you know, something with golds to bring it out and get it nice and rich. But for this, what's cool about it is that this is really gonna add to that kind of diseased type of look and feel to the model here. So I'm gonna mix it into this and get this nice wash ready to go. And I'm going to keep this in this bottle cap over here so I can go back and add some of it in as we go on this bad boy, because this is going to be what we're basing it off of. Now you can cut this stuff. Army Painter has where is it, their quick wash medium, which is you know, a tension breaker. Things like matte medium, Lamian medium, and G-Dub, even a Future Floor Wax 50/50 mix that I use a lot on this channel. This is basically the same thing, but it's specifically for using with quick shade wash from Army Painter. So you can add this in if you want to thin down. If you're using, you know, large surface areas, that I don't feel like we super need that on this model because it's so small. So I'm just going to go straight raw dog onto the pale flesh here for our little 50/50. Well, I would say it's more 80 flesh and maybe like 20% purple right here. And we're just going to cover up the whole foot just to give you an idea of how thin this stuff really is already. Look at that. It's got great coverage, covered that whole foot right there. And it's already looking really good. So I'm gonna give it a little bit more cover here because it's sliding off, and let it dry. And then we'll come back and hit the rest of the model. So after about 2 minutes in front of the fan, you can see what we're gonna be dealing with right here. Now, this isn't that rich brown, you know, flesh wash that you would expect, you know, kind of looking at the wash mix right here. And that's because it's over, you know, a pale undercoat right here. So what's cool about this is you can build this up over consecutive coats and have different looking tints, so to speak, to your miniatures here. So that's kind of cool. Now, I didn't want to do the whole thing and then wait for it to dry and then do the whole thing again to kind of show you, but this kind of gives you the idea of where we're going with this. Now, we're going to take this chisel brush and we're going to go in and we're gonna hit all of the flesh areas now with this, starting at the top, working the way down to the bottom, you know, to let gravity kind of do its thing, and then trying to leave the metals and all the pouches and everything alone. So like I said, starting at the top and working our way down, we're just gonna get that first coat across everything as best we can, trying to avoid those areas that we just talked about. I'm also going to try to avoid the bone areas because I really want to hit those with strong tone instead, just to make the bone pop a little bit more. But yeah, this is pretty much how it's going to go. Careful application using a chisel type brush of the first coat is going to be key to really making everything kind of work together and kind of pop off. Here you can see from the top. That's a great view up there, and you're gonna see all the bony, horny detail back here on these areas too. So just want to make sure we get a nice, solid base coat working across all of those areas as we work our way down. And again, we'll probably do 2 applications of this, just because this is really, really thin. I've used this this wash before on things, and it might have been darker. The things we were actually, you know, the surface we were painting. So it went over a lot and coated a little bit, you know, darker. But for this instance, we're a lot paler, but that's okay. I would much rather go in this direction than have to go back and redo stuff because it was too dark off the bat. So I'm going to finish this up and come on back and show you the results. Now, to me, this project keeps looking better and better every second here. Now you can see what 2 applications of that wash will do. That's why we did the foot separate. So there's 1 application, there's 2 applications. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna coat this in a second application of the flesh wash. But here's where we're gonna flip the script a bit. In these areas here with all this purple and stuff, I'm gonna actually just go straight purple wash up into there to give it that like extra super juicy look, right? So we're gonna get in there and we're gonna do all sorts of like crazy purple up in here and around in there just to give it like, oh, that really sick look. And now I'm gonna come in with in that bruised look, and now we're gonna come in with the flesh wash and get the rest of it, and it'll kind of start mixing together and make that really make that effect really pop off right there. So rinse my brush out, and again we're gonna start at the top, work our way down just like we did last time, and you can already see it's really starting to kind of come together there. Oh man, what a difference that made right there. You can see the flesh is looking great, looking fantastic, looking sick, so to speak. But now it's time to do the rest. We got some metal right there to get on. So we are going to mix up a little bit of strong tone 50-50 with dark tone and just get in there and hit all of those metals. Probably get some on the strap work, but that's okay. I'm not too worried about it. This is probably going to, because again, it's so light, right? It's probably going to be a two coat process here to get it looking good, but we'll start with that right there. And then up here, of course, we're going to hit all of this, and we've already filled in the pits, so I don't have to worry about that as much. Over here, getting on the front. Very easy to apply this stuff. And then we'll go in and isolate some of the belt buckles and things. And I think we'll just go ahead and apply strong tone itself minus the dark tone to all the brown features here, all of our leather work and things like that. And that's probably just a 1 step, but we'll have to come back and do another coat over the metals. Man, so we are really making our way towards the end of this project, but it's definitely time to give another wash to these metals here. And you can see I went in and did just some strong tone, or some dark tone rather, over these grays right here. So let's mix some strong tone and dark tone together real quick here on my palette, and we'll just give another liberal coating to the metal just to get that effect that we want. And then we'll probably give it a light dry brush or something at the end. I don't know, whatever makes it look good really for the effect. It's super easy, but you can tell that it definitely needed a little bit more oomph there. It was just a little not dark enough for my liking, and we went in and used dark tone, strong tone on the browns, dark tone on the metals themselves right there, which you can see we finished up all of that. Now really the only thing besides waiting for that second coat to dry that's left, and basing of course, but that's going to be a completely different issue, is I'm going to use some of this military shader, which is it's also a wash, but it's more for some of the historical stuff out there. But man, this is really great for, here, let me show you what it looks like. This is really great for these greens right here. It's a nice, it's almost like in comparison to G-Dub, maybe like Anthonian camo shade. And I just think I'm just going to slap it over this green right here just to give it a little bit more depth and not be quite as bright, because it's not going to be like, hey, look, we just washed our greens, but the rest of us are disgusting as we're walking across the battlefield. Not so much. So there it is. That's really pulling those greens through. Loving the look of that. And I think, besides maybe just a little light dry brush, I think we're good on all the other detail here. So let's give it a second and come on back and give you the big summary. So there he is. I'm ready to call this job done. I actually added in a little bit of dark tone to the eye sockets there to get a little bit of contrast, and I think that worked out really well. But you can see from start to finish, all of those little base coats really combined together when we used the washes, and some of them doing the double coat there that you can see on the metals really kind of pulled that through as well, I feel like, in the long run. So everything's shaded, everything, it's got a crisp highlight on it at the raised edges. That's the bonus to using the Army Painter washes, is that everything just kind of seeps and spreads out to that great degree that we really want contrast wise. So now, of course, this guy needs a base. That'll be a thing for another day, but I'm going to use some of our demonic bases that we use for our Nurgle. I got this other little test figure here that we did using the same techniques. Believe it or not, there was just more exposed flesh, of course, so not as much on the crazy purples, but you can see all the same elements from the bone to the green right there, down into the feet and everything like that. On the back, there isn't quite as much detail on this miniature on the right, but yeah, these definitely turned out very well. I'm super stoked for these. Now this one has a little bit more flesh wash application to it as well over here on the right, and a lot more bone detail. So it's two different types of figures, but they definitely go together, and that was the reason we used those greens to try to pull it together for the army overall. So from primer, necrotic flesh, working it up through a lot of those steps that we used, from the pale flesh, the pale skin, doing the cutbacks with all those purples and everything, just a little bit of highlights sporadically in there, and letting the washes get in there and do the work that they do. The very last thing we need to do is obviously give this a matte coat, another matte coat varnish, because we are finished with it now, and then start working on the bases. So from start to finish, probably the longest step in my opinion was base coating and highlighting the pants, to be quite honest, and maybe picking out all of the poxes and pustules that we wanted to paint there. I feel like that was what took the longest. So this has been a really fun project. I cannot say enough good things about the Army Painter system. You can see here it definitely paid off in spades on these two figures here. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed our video tutorial on how to paint a Malefic Lord, Nurgle Malefic Lord, Poxwalker, whatever you want to call them. You can apply this to Death Guard themselves using that same color combination instead of for the pants, for the armor plating, of course, and kind of go from there. Obviously, the sky is pretty much the limit. You don't have to airbrush those highlights either, like we talked about earlier. You don't have to do all that airbrushing. You can literally just base coat it and let the washes do the work if you want, if that's your thing. So there is no right or a wrong way to use the Army Painter system, from the sprays to actually the war painter bottles themselves, to airbrushing with the Army Painter paints as well. They all work together flawlessly to form this really awesome system that's super easy to use, in my opinion. So there we go. That's it for this one. Please subscribe to our channel here if you love these type of features, so you can be the very first to like and comment on them. And head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the 8th edition battle reports for exclusive content,
early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today.